Good morning, Year 10. Okay, so you will be getting one of these every Monday, and you are expected to plan your own time over the week, but every week you'll be getting a new one, and every week I'll be asking you to submit something. So how you do that is on you. I think you're getting some guidance on that via email and whatnot, and you'll be sending study plans to your tutors and stuff, but we're going to carry on thinking about peace and conflict, specifically today something a little bit different from war. So let's crack on. We've got a poem here. See if you can figure out what it is about. You see me suspended in space-time as I'm passing the 89th floor. Falling headlong, my form is impressive. Sadly, no one will be holding up scores. Just moments ago, I was standing at a Morton's fork in the road. The fires of hell were advancing where I stood on the 98th floor. Well, you can imagine my terror when I came face to face with the flames. I don't know why I chose as I did. Souls in torment can never explain the day my death predetermined, but which death would provide me less pain. My choice, which was no choice at all, was to smash through the windows and fall. Then the only thing that could save me was the camera that captured it all. Now, the stuff we've done before now isn't going to help you figure out what this is about. You're going to have to use your brain, see if you can get any clues from the information in the poem. This is a poem by a guy called John McCulloch, and it is called Fallen Man. It was written in response to this image. Now, this guy here, he was in one of the Twin Towers on September the 11th, and he chose to smash a window and jump from the 98th floor rather than burn to death. Now, in that poem is referring to Morton's fork. Now, Morton was like the financial advisor to Henry VII. He was also the Archbishop of Canterbury at the time. And him and Henry VIII were talking about tax collecting, and Morton basically said, well, it's really unpleasant whichever way you do it. And that's now been referred to as Morton's fork, where you've got more than one choice, but all of them lead to an unpleasant consequence. So in this guy's case, he had the choice: did he want to burn to death, or did he want to jump to his death? And John McCulloch saw this photo. It was everywhere. Literally, I remember the days after 9/11 it being on the front pages of the newspapers and things. And he looked at this picture and he wanted to respond to the terror attack through this poem. It's a very difficult decision this guy had to make. I'm not sure how I feel about John McCulloch making a poem and potentially making money out of this guy's very difficult decision. But we are today going to be talking about terrorism. So hopefully by the end of today, we'll be able to think about different Christian responses to it. We'll be able to absolutely talk about what it is, and we'll be able to give some different examples. Now, there have been quite a few terrorist attacks in your lifetimes or just outside your lifetimes, and there have been them throughout time. Terrorism literally just translates to causing terror or the fear of violence in order to make change. So on 9/11, the Taliban, they caused fear and violence in order to change, or they wanted to change, the kind of capitalist Western society. That's why they aimed their planes at the Twin Towers. They were trade towers. They were where a lot of financial business and deals and so on were going on. And so it was aimed there as a statement. And it did cause fear. If you speak to your parents and your grandparents about pre 9/11 and after 9/11, things did change. I remember before 9/11 being able to go into the cockpit and sit with the pilots and pretend to fly the plane as we were flying. You didn't have to put all of your lip balms in a plastic bag before you got on a plane. There wasn't all of the Islamophobia that there is now, and all of that is because of what happened in 9/11 and 7/7. If you remember, there was an attack in July in the UK, in London, but a lot of it came from 9/11. So we're going to think about Christian responses specifically to that. So this is President Bush, and he was in charge of America at the time of 9/11. He was an evangelical Christian, which means he was very outspoken about his Christian beliefs. So when he's speaking here, he is a Christian responding to terrorism. So let's have a listen to see what he says about 9/11.
I also want to speak tonight directly to Muslims throughout the world. We respect your faith. It's practiced freely by many millions of Americans, and by millions more in countries that America counts as friends. Its teachings are good and peaceful, and those who commit evil in the name of Allah blaspheme the name of Allah. The terrorists are traitors to their own faith, trying in effect to hijack Islam itself. The enemy of America is not our many Muslim friends. It is not our many Arab friends. Our enemy is a radical network of terrorists and every government that supports them.
Okay, so with his Christian beliefs then, he is saying Muslims are our friends. This is not an attack on Muslims, but he does say that it is an attack on radical terrorists and the governments that support him. Now this speech that he did here, it was the lead up to what's referred to as the War on Terror, where he and the American army and various armies in support went out into Afghanistan and other Middle Eastern nations in order to try and end the war on terror, as in get their, I want to say own back, but that's not right, but they wanted to capture the Taliban, specifically Osama bin Laden, and they wanted to end that terror. So you've got two responses here. I'm interested in what you think of them. So first of all, he's saying this isn't about Muslims. We love you. You are peaceful people, etc. This is a response to terrorists, and this is a response to governments that support terror. What do we think of that as a response? If you were in charge of a government, if you'd been in charge of a country where there was an act of terror, is this the response you'd have gone for? Do you think it's adequate? Have a think. I'll let you know at the end of this little lesson thing about what it is that I want you to submit to me, but one of the things is going to be that I want you to be able to tell me how effective you think these responses are. Now the second...
I also want to speak tonight directly to Muslims throughout the world. We respect your faith. It's practiced freely by many millions of Americans, and by millions more in countries that America counts as friends. Its teachings are good and peaceful, and those who commit evil in the name of Allah blaspheme the name of Allah. The terrorists are traitors to their own faith, trying in effect to hijack Islam itself. The enemy of America is not our many Muslim friends. It is not our many Arab friends. Our enemy is a radical network of terrorists and every government that supports them.
The second response I'm going to show you is from a museum. It's called 9/11 Memorial, and it's a museum and memorial at the site of 9/11. Now watch this little clip and then I'll explain a little bit more about it.
Will is buried The only thing we can see of Will is his head.
The last day I saw Todd, had a big hug. Loved him.
An addiction to go there and bring family members home to their loved ones.
It's a museum about humanity at the start of the 21st century. There's something that is so powerful in personalizing this history. People learn and engage in history when there's someone who they identify with. What we have is the physical note the secretary wrote that donated in memory of his wife, Kirsten Christoph. She worked in the South Tower. It's the morning of September 11th. She's called to say that the North Tower has been hit, that she is safe, and that he shouldn't worry. The time is incredible because this was literally the moment that Flight 175 was piercing the South Tower. And in a little ephemeral piece of paper, so many big stories and themes of this morning play out. It's about fate. You lived or you died by the sheer random act of where you turned left or you turned right. Much of which we take into the collection has been damaged, and our goal is to preserve the evidence of damage. That is part of the story. That is the authentic patina that gives these artifacts such resonance.
The history of 9/11 won't be fully understood for quite some time. Some people say we won't understand 9/11 until after none of us are here any longer.
Fire is coming up from the other side. We're coughing, we're choking.
Scott Strauss was one of the New York City police officers who just crawled into the wreckage to the survivors.
There's a little kid. He's got the sign. And the sign says, "Please find my dad." We realized what we were there for.
When we record the oral histories, we're doing our best to document people's memories, people's feelings, their reflections, so that the next generation can make some meaning, some sense, some logic.
I think it's, an amazing artifact. Maybe it's from the interior of the plane.
You're always collecting for the future. It would be a frozen museum. You said we're done. And we are still out and about doing this work. Because I can't predict what people will be asking 100 years from now, but I can predict they'll be asking something quite different than they are necessarily today. The attacks absolutely destroyed the physical world as we knew it. And here are just the shards that are left. And having that physical bridge, I think, is a very powerful connecting tool for people to engage in the history.
Okay, so just to give you a bit more of an idea of 9/11 Memorial, I pulled up some pictures of what it actually looks like. So here we go. You can see that the bottom right picture, you can see those two big squares. They're where the two Twin Towers were. So it's in a big block in Manhattan, and that's where the two towers were. But what they've done in the top left photo, you can see a close-in, is they've made them into massive water features. These are the footprints, like the foundations, and they run water constantly down the sides of them. On the right, you can see that the sides of these memorials are engraved with names, and people leave flowers and stuff there. They are the names of the people who died either in the towers or they died rescuing people from the towers, because remember, there were lots and lots of police and ambulance staff and fire people there rescuing people when the towers fell, so a lot of those died in the falling of it. And in the bottom left, you can see this is called the survivor tree, and this tree, somehow, that was there before 9/11, and it has survived and it's flourished, and they've put like a little protecting railing around it, and people hang wishes and things and memories of people from it, and it's this sort of symbol of, I guess, the nation or New York surviving the terror attack. So do we think that the museum and do we think that the memorial are an effective way of responding to terrorism? Very, very different to going to war with Afghanistan and with the Taliban, for example. This was a very different response. Is this effective? So at the end, you'll see. I'm going to ask you to think about that. Now, the next task, I'm going to allocate you a group your group is listed on PARS and on the email that I've sent you, and you are going to do the tasks that relate to your group. Now, it doesn't matter how you do them, whether you write things down, whether you type things, you make a PowerPoint, you make a mind map, completely up to you. What does matter to me is that you're able to submit this so that other people can see it. Because if you're group 1, your information is going to go to group 2 and group 3, and if you are group 2, it's going to 1 and 3, and if you're 3, it's going to 1 and 2, so that everybody's got this information. And hopefully, when we get ourselves back to school, we can get this printed, we can get it stuck in our books, and we'll have all of the information we need. So, group 1, what I'd like you to do is research some Islamic extremist groups. I've mentioned the Taliban, but there are other extremist groups that exist or have done in the past, and it's your task to find them. When you find them, I just want to know kind of where are they, what do they believe, what terror attacks are they responsible for, etc. And then I'd like you to find out about Contest, which is a strategy designed to prevent and to tackle terrorism. And it's allocated into 4 areas of response: pursue, prevent, protect and prepare. So if you can find out what each of those responses entails. So that's going to be your task. Group number 2, you are going to be in charge of finding about Christian responses. So first of all, just basic Christian responses to all types of terrorism. What do Methodists think? What do Baptists think? What does the Catholic Church think? What does the Church of England think? And then I'd like you to dive a little bit deeper into 2 of those. Firstly, the Catholic Church. They have that book called the Catechisms of the Catholic Church, and this is letters, this is comments that popes throughout time have made since I guess the Bible was finished off and they couldn't add to it anymore. And these statements and these letters and these prayers become kind of doctrine. They become kind of rules for the Catholic Church. So what does that say about terrorism? And secondly, the Church of England. What does that say about terrorism and how we should overcome it? Now, here's a clue for you. If you Google "Facing the Challenge of Terrorism," that's a report, and that is written by the Church of England about terrorism and about how to overcome it. So you can have a look on that. And finally, group 3, you're going to do something a little bit different, because the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, they are a Christian group of terrorists. So I want you to find out about them. What did they believe? Why did they believe that terrorism was acceptable? What terrorist attacks did they create? Specifically, one in London, in Canary Wharf, would be interesting to find out about. Now, why did some Catholics, because these were a group of Catholics, think it was okay to do that during the Troubles? Now, the Troubles is a time in Northern Ireland where Catholics and Church of England, Protestants, not Church of England necessarily, were fighting each other. They were disagreeing with each other about a lot, and you need to know what they were disagreeing about and why some Catholics decided it was okay to pursue terrorism. And then finally, how did that all come to an end? Because if you go to Northern Ireland now, you're not going to see the same level of violence, certainly nothing like it. So that's your task. So all this talking about terrorism got me thinking. There's been terrorism throughout history, and this is a picture that should trigger potentially some memories of a terrorist attack that I think maybe we celebrate. I wonder if you can figure out what it is. If you can read the names there, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th name along, Guy Fawkes. Him and his group of friends there, they decided they didn't like the way the government were running, and they planted massive amounts of explosives in the basement of the House of Parliament with the intention to set it off. Now, he got caught just before he could set it off, but still, it's an example of terrorism or attempted terrorism. And yet, rather than have a memorial to the people who lost their lives or could have lost their lives, we celebrate him. We blow things up. We have fireworks. We have a bonfire. Is it okay that in some cases we celebrate terrorism? It's not something I want you to particularly answer. It's just an interesting little thought. I wonder how many more attacks and terrorism throughout history there are in the world where this is the same kind of thing happens. I want this submitting. I want an explanation of what the falling man is a response to. I want you to explain how effective you think the responses of Bush and the Memorial Museum are and why you think that's the case. And I want you to send me the research from your tasks, whether you're group 1, 2 or 3. You're going to send that to my email address. I popped it on there just in case for some reason you've forgotten it. All of that I need by the 27th. It's not a negotiable date because I need to get it out to everybody else because we're sharing our responses. So by the 27th of April, please. As always, if you've got any issues, send me an email and I will be in touch with you. I hope you've had a lovely Easter holiday. Let's get back to it and get some work done. See you soon, guys. Take care. Bye.